Well, hey there, it's Jenny Wolek with the Wolek Group. Tulsa looks good on you, and I love having this business spotlight series where we get to feature local business owners that really help Tulsa be such an amazing place. And specifically today, we're going to talk with Kathleen Pence with Pence Law Firm because there's a lot going on in our community and especially in our real estate business. We get to help so many people through the real estate process. And sometimes it's very exciting and fun times when they're buying or selling a home. And then sometimes it's not always so fun. Life happens. And so this is why we brought in Kathleen to be the expert when it comes to maybe our seniors, our boomers, and those people who may need to downsize to that in that phase of life. And they might need to know some other things that they don't know that they need to know, Kathleen.
That's right. There's a lot of ins and outs in this area.
Yeah, so let's have you take it away. Share who you are and where you are, and then how we can learn from you here today.
Okay, so I'm Kathleen Pence. I own and operate Pence Law Firm. We're located in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but we serve, all of Oklahoma. Any counties that touch Tulsa County, we are in there with those people. We help out the older generations, the boomers, the older Gen X's, I'm one of them, with real property, probate, estates, trust litigation, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of things that the boomer generation needs to know about their real estate and how to pass it. And we have some little tips and tricks that we can talk about, like transfer on death deeds. How do those work? They don't automatically transfer property. So that's a good thing to remember. And just certain issues with title that come up, we deal with all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's not really anything we want to know until we really need to know it. So if you could just share from your experience, you get to help people with this all the time. But what are some just first steps that people could start thinking about now when they're healthy and young and have the time and energy to plan ahead?
Well, what you need to think about, and nobody wants to, because nobody wants to think about if they're not here, but what you need to think about is in the future, if I'm not here, what do I want to happen with my things? And you need to get real granular with that, because the more that you leave up to a decision maker in the future that's not you, the more stress and fighting that can lead to in your family. So if you feel like you're giving your family, all this discretion and that helps out because then they can just figure it out, that's actually the hardest thing for your family to do, because then they're in the position of trying to figure out what you may have wanted, and they're trying to make everybody happy in the moment. And that's really hard for them. So as much as you don't want to tell people what to do with your things, you need to tell people what to do. And when we're talking about real estate, unless you have a person that actually wants your house, like your particular house, do not put 8 people's names on title, because it never works. Never. So what I suggest is if somebody wants your house, just give them the house, and then plan for distribution of the other property to all of your other kids. If you know nobody's going to want to live in your house, just plan to have it sold and to distribute the proceeds. That's typically what we do anyway. In trust or in probate, is we typically just sell the house and distribute the proceeds, and then we divide up the personal property based on what's important to certain people. But it's really important to write these things down, because we can't transfer property based on what somebody told us. And if you think about it, you may have had a conversation with somebody 10 years ago and you're like, yeah, you can have this curio cabinet, that's fine. And you forget that you had this conversation, but they remember this. And then 10 years later, you're having a conversation with another kid and you're like, oh yeah, you can have that curio, I don't care. Well, now they remember that too. And so then when the time comes, now they're both saying, no, mom promised me that curio. And now we have a problem. So if we can just write these things down somewhere, it would be really, really beneficial for everybody.
Is there a form? Is there a workbook? Is there a notebook? Is there a certain checklist for this kind of stuff?
Well, we help our clients walk through this. I wish there was. I wish there was a checklist as they do these things. Sometimes the steps we take depend on your situation. It depends on your family and your goals. So we meet with our clients and kind of walk through what their goals are and how we can set something up now to achieve that in the future. So we kind of walk through that with everybody. But I think the main thing to remember is if it's not written down, it's probably not going to happen. So even if you have a piece of paper that says, this is where I want my things to go, that's helpful. Now, can you probate that? Like, can you present that in a courtroom and say, hey, this is what needs to happen? No, you can't just present a list. So if you're going to want to have, if you're going to transfer property that has title, like we're talking about cars, RVs, houses, lake houses, boats, things like that, we're either going to need that distribution to happen from a will or a trust. So all of those things are writings, right? And so we need those to be in writing, because just having someone say, well, I told my granddaughter what's going to happen, and that's easy. It's really not easy in the future, because people forget, things change, and we can't present what somebody told somebody in a courtroom. So
this happens for us a lot of times, unfortunately. A home, someone passes, right, and the property then becomes the responsibility of the children, for example. And we get the call and they say, okay, I need to sell my parents' home. Right. And we're like, great, because we want to help you, right? And so, yeah. I mean, good thing now we kind of know some better questions to ask, but maybe also share just to the general public of when someone passes, you may think that you have the right to sell that property, but you might not. And so then it goes into the fun word called probate.
Probate, right. So when someone passes away and somebody comes to me and says, oh, my parent passed and I'm going to sell their house, my first question is always, well, who's on the title? Because if we only have parent's name on the title and parent has passed, this child does not have the legal authority to sell this piece of property. What we have to do is we have to go to court and we have to have someone appointed as a representative for this estate to be able to sell this property. And in addition, we have to get court permission to sell. So we can't just have somebody appointed and go on and start selling property. We actually have to ask the court's permission as well. Mm-hmm. So the first step in dealing with property if someone's passed away is to look at the title. Now, lay people, the average Joe doesn't really know how to pull land records and that sort of thing. So going to either a realtor that knows how to do that, that can look it up, or going to a real estate attorney or a probate attorney that knows how to pull land records is the one way to help you, because you need to know who's on the title. And if we have a deceased person on the title, we're going to have to probate. Now, if the property is in a trust, all we have to do is find out who the trustee is. And then that person can sell if the trust allows for the sale of property. So that's why it's important for the trust to say what their powers are, what they should do, that sort of thing. We want it to be really specific. You get trusts that are like 26 pages long and you're like, why is all this stuff in here? For that reason, so that we can look at it and say, this person's the trustee and they're allowed to sell this property. We're good to go. So we always want to know if there's a trust, what's the trust say, and who's the trustee, and can they sell it? So the trust avoids probate. So it makes it a little bit easier to do that sale. And a will does not avoid probate, but we just have to deal with what we have when that person passes away. And I want to make a quick note, because this came up last week with a potential client. You cannot change these documents after someone has passed away. So if we have a will, I know that might sound like common sense, but I had someone come in and tell me that a mortgage company advised them to notarize a will after this person had passed away. You can't do that. Once they pass, the documents are what they are. So please don't alter them or amend them in any way.
So define really what probate means and the length of time that it really does take, because this can be unexpected for a family member who might think, oh, I need this. I need this cash to pay for expenses for this person. Right.
So probate it's technically a lawsuit because we go to court. We have to go to court and we have to ask the court to find that they have jurisdiction, which just means that the person died here, they have property here, and this is appropriate here. And then we're asking the court to appoint a representative for the estate, someone that has authority to act on behalf of the estate. So this is a person that can deal with creditors' claims, they can sell property, ask the court to sell property. We want the court to determine who the heirs at law are, because those are the people that are entitled to notice. And anything that we do in a probate, we have to notice everybody. We can't do it in secret. Everybody has to be able to know about it. They get a right to come in and object. Now, just because they object doesn't mean we can't do it, but they have a right to come in and be heard. So because of that, we have to observe certain waiting periods. I mean, the notice to creditors period is 60 days. So that's 2 months. When we file a probate, we have to have a first hearing. That's 4 weeks after the date that we file. That's minimum 3 months right there, and we just to wait. So typical probates, if we're clipping along and we have no issues, and I'm going to tell you, I have never had a probate that has no issues. Everybody has their own, unfortunately. But pie in the sky, perfect probate, we can be done in 6 months.
And
Average.
And you'd have a probate because it wasn't clear.
We have a probate because we have property
Property.
that has a deceased person's name on it that needs to be transferred. And the only way that we can transfer it either is by this will that we have, and we ask the court to admit the will, or we don't have anything. And we have to go ask the court to allow us to transfer this property. And if you don't have anything put in place to say who inherits from you, the state has laws that they've put in place that decides what happens with your things. And normally people are like, that's fine. I want my kids to take anyway. It's fine. Well, that is okay if you have a very simple situation. But again, your kids are going to be paying for probate. They're going to be paying for this process. And it's probably going to be $8,000 to $10,000 of their own money up front to complete this process, because it's not cheap. And there are a number of things that we have to do inside of a probate. So it's going to take 6 months to a year, probably. It's going to cost your kids $8,000 to $10,000 to complete this. And that's if things go off without a hitch. Now I'm telling you, I've had fake deeds filed on probate property. It was transferred 3 times. We had to go in and file a lis pendens on the real property to get it to stop. We had to set aside the deeds. We had to do eviction on squatters. So, and that's worst case scenario. That's one of those cases where things just kept popping up. But these things happen, and then we have to deal with them. So yeah, it'll take minimum 6 months to a year. It's going to probably be $8,000 to $10,000. Now, what's good about the probate process is that whoever's serving as the personal representative, they are allowed to be paid back for whatever expenses they put out in the probate. So they can apply for the court for their attorney fees, for costs, that sort of thing, and that'll come to them off the top before any distribution is made. So that's good in the end, but they're still having to front this money. And sometimes, like in a probate we have going on now, we think we're going to have all of this money left over from the sale of the house, and then we have 8 to 10 creditors show up, and those people get paid from the sale, and nobody else is getting money from it. So we really want to make sure that we have those things in place so that transfer is easy, so everybody knows what's going on. If you can avoid probate, I would suggest it. If you can have a trust created and put your property in trust, and everything's in trust when you pass, it does make it a lot easier.
Okay. I was going to ask, what's the workaround to make it the easiest as possible for those that are remaining around after?
Yeah, cleanest and easiest is everything's in trust. Okay. Because that means bank accounts are in trust, real property is in trust, cars, vehicles, all those things are in trust. And what that does is it's owned by the trust, so the trustee can just distribute it based on whatever the trust says. And trusts are really great documents because they can be drafted just about any way that you want, as long as we're legal. You can give your trustee as much discretion as you want. You can give them no discretion. You can put out a schedule that has specific distributions. You can say no, just liquidate everything and divide among everyone as equally as possible. There's so many ways that we can do many things that we can do in a trust. So I like them for that reason. But what makes it hard for a client is I'm not telling them how to do it. So they kind of struggle because I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. What should I do? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do? Like, what's your family look like? Do you have specific distributions? And we really have to kind of dig through that in order to create something that works for their family.
Yeah. So I bet you have so many good stories, not for recording purposes, of course, but I bet that there's some really good experiences like us as well in real estate. There's always fun stuff. It's always an exciting day. So Kathleen, I know that you are so great at helping your clients through this process, one that you don't really want to have to think about, but it's really important that you do. How can people best find you and really maybe themselves up now so they don't have to go through this pain later on?
We are available online. You can go to pencelawok.com and we have a contact page. You can just fill out that contact page. And I have an intake lady who's amazing. Her name's Caroline. Lovely British accent. She'll call and speak with you. And she'll talk to you and see if, we can help you. And if it's something that we can help you with, then we'll set you for an appointment, a consultation with me so they can go through everything. If it's something we don't think we can help you with, we'll send you to someone who's really good. So you can go to our website, which is pencelawok.com. You can call our office at 918-367-8505. And we're all over social media. So you can always go to our website and check out our videos and all that sort of stuff just for some more information.
Well, it's always a joy learning from you, and it's such an important thing. And again, nothing that we want to really think about, but it's so important that we do. Thank you for your advice and your time. You can send me the bill later. And I appreciate you so very much for all that you do in helping our families through the process that sometimes isn't such a joy, but you make it a joy by being such a great human. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you having me on. And if we can help anybody, I would love to hear from them. So
awesome. Well, we'll talk to you soon, Kathleen. Thank you.
Right. Thanks. Bye.